All right, it's about that time. Thanks everybody again. Really appreciate you joining me tonight for this truncated Solar 101 and the installer Q&A with Jordan from Icon Power. So I have about just a few slides, kind of just doing a mini version of the Solar 101, and should just take about 15 or 20 minutes, I would expect. And then I will hand it over to Jordan with Icon Power to introduce himself and talk about his company a little bit. And then I'll hand it over to you all to ask any questions you might have. Feel free to ask about the co-op process, about something very specific to your home or your property that you have a question about. Any and all questions, big and small, are welcome here. And so with that, let's go ahead and get started. If we haven't met before, my name is Adrian Keller. I'm the Arizona Program Director for Solar United Neighbors, or SUN for short, as we usually call it. I live in downtown Phoenix, and I've been with the organization for a little over 2 years now. I oversee all of our co-op programming throughout the state of Arizona, in addition to some of the policy and advocacy work we do as well. So there's definitely been a few folks who have just joined the co-op very recently. And I know a couple of people on the call may not yet be in the co-op. So to catch everybody up to speed, this is actually our 4th annual Tucson Solar Co-op, and we launched it in early March of this year. We did a full version of this Solar 101 webinar. It's kind of one of the first things we do right out of the gate when we launch a co-op. And so if you want a more detailed version of what we're talking about tonight, I'd be happy to share a link with you of that recording. In April, SUN issued a request for proposals to solar installers who serve the local area. We got a lot of bids. It was another very competitive round, which is good for you all. And so in May, a selection of your fellow co-op members met to review all of the different bids and ended up voting to select Icon Power on behalf of the co-op. Throughout the month of May, we continued to grow the co-op. We got a couple new pieces of news coverage, which was really cool. And so we're happy to see a couple few new folks here. And then that about brings us up to speed where we are tonight with this installer Q&A. The co-op is open for a little bit longer. So if you've got a friend or a family member who's interested in going solar, they can still join until June 7th. So as a refresher, Solar United Neighbors, we are a vendor-neutral national 501c3 nonprofit. We field staff in 12 states, including Arizona. We help people go solar, and we represent the interests of solar owners by advocating for policies that make it easier for more people to go solar. We ourselves are not a solar installer. We're a vendor-neutral organization, but we focus on consumer advocacy, solar education, and community outreach. So our mission is to help people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. Since 2009, we've helped close to 9,000 families across the US install solar panels. That's totaling about 75 megawatts of new solar capacity. And we're very, very close to hitting 1 million tons of offset CO2, which is really cool. Arizona is one of our newer states at SUN. We've been here just since 2019, and in that time helped a little more than 500 people go solar. That's about 4 megawatts all combined. Our members in the state have spent about $12 million on their solar panels, but they're going to save about $22 million over the lifespan of those systems. All these new solar installations have helped to contribute to an equivalent of about 90 solar jobs in the state, and of course, offset a significant amount of carbon as well. And this is our 17th co-op since 2019. This, like I said, our 4th round in Tucson. And we've, of course, run many up in Maricopa County, Flagstaff area, and Prescott. Our Phoenix Metro Solar Co-op is actually open now. So if you know anybody up in the valley, pretty much anywhere in Maricopa County, they can sign up today. So first section is about some of the basics of solar technology. So first of all, how do solar panels work? So when we're talking about solar tonight, we're referring to photovoltaics or PV cells. Solar panels are made up of semiconductor materials, mostly silicon, so that when sunlight or photons from that sunlight hit the solar panels, it dislodges those electrons, generating a flow of electricity. You may have heard of solar thermal or solar hot water heaters before. Those definitely still exist today, but the vast majority of the market is made up of PV solar, which is the focus of this co-op. Each individual solar panel, aka a solar module, is made up of about 60 to 70 individual solar cells that are kind of sandwiched in between these two glass frames. And panels are usually pretty large, usually about 6 feet by 3.5 feet on average. When you put everything together, we usually call that a solar array. And then to talk briefly about how the system gets attached to your roof. Again, if you have specific questions about that tonight, Jordan's going to be your guy. But generally, they are going to get attached with some form of racking system. Picture here is sort of that typical asphalt shingle roof where the rails are screwed into your roof, and then those solar panels are kind of clipped onto the beams. If you have a flat roof or a shingle roof or a tile roof, certainly that can work well as well with solar panels. Most types of roofs can handle solar, and again, we'd be happy to answer any specifics about that. And then just to clarify a little bit of terminology, a kilowatt, also known as kW, is a unit of power. So it's usually used to describe the size of a solar system in 1,000-watt increments. So 1,000 watts is 1 kilowatt. So pictured on the screen here is 12 solar panels. If they're each 350 watts, 12 times 350 is 4,200. So we call that a 4.2 kilowatt solar array. Kilowatt hours, kWh, that is a unit of energy. So that's what you see on your electricity bill, refers to the amount of electricity you're consuming or producing from your solar panels. Typically in Arizona, most people are getting on average about a 7 to 8 kilowatt size system. However, we have noticed in the recent years, those sizes have been creeping up a little bit. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that average is a little bit higher by now. So just to put everything together, how it all works, your solar panels are up on your roof, absorbing sunlight and generating a flow of electricity. You'll have a solar inverter part of your installation that is going to invert that electricity from DC, direct current, to AC, alternating current. And then the electrical panels, for the whole operations, directing power where it needs to go and when it needs to go. And then solar owners have a bidirectional utility meter so that it can read and measure, but anything you're selling back that you're not using yourself. TEP, essentially 2 different plans for solar owners to choose from. Pricing is slightly different, but they're both time of use. So the price of electricity that you buy is going to vary depending on the time of day and the time of year. Either way, though, you'll be charged for on-peak energy. You'll also see a charge for off-peak energy. And then the plan on the right has a monthly demand charge, which you'll be charged for based off of the highest single hour of usage during on-peak periods. That 6.33 cents a kilowatt hour, that solar export credit, that's what TEP is paying you back for any excess solar generation that your home isn't using. Typically, we found that most customers in TEP tend to go for the simpler plan, the time of use plan on the left. Even though the prices for electricity are higher, hopefully your solar system is going to be covering most of your energy needs during the day, and thus help you decrease your overall bill. Whereas it can be difficult for solar to offset or minimize that demand charge. And then to talk a little bit about what's a good site for solar, first off, the roof orientation, which direction your roof is facing is very important. South facing is always going to be preferred because that's where your roof is going to be absorbing the most amount of sunlight and will generate the most amount of electricity. West facing solar can work really well too, especially in the context of those peak pricing hours. So, between 3 and 8 p.m. As electricity costs go up, that's typically when the sun is setting. And so if you're able to generate a lot of electricity during that time on the west side of your roof, that can definitely help offset your electricity bill. And then east facing solar certainly works as well, but don't recommend putting it on the north side of your roof. It's important that there's not a significant amount of shading from trees or structure or another building that's covering a large portion of your roof. If that is the case and trimming your trees is an option, we definitely recommend it as that can help increase how much your system is producing. And then you want enough unobstructed space on your roof to make sure you can handle all the solar panels. If you haven't yet signed up for the co-op, one of the first things we do is a satellite roof review. So we check the spacing of your roof, the shading, the orientation, and give you kind of an estimate of whether we think your roof will be a good site for solar or not before you get any further down the process. And then finishing up this section, just with some frequently asked questions, we get quite a bit. First is about warranties. So a typical solar installation is going to come with 3 different warranties. First is a power production warranty. This is usually a 25-year warranty from the solar panel manufacturer. So essentially, it is saying that your panels will produce at a certain level by year 25. For example, we often see like a 90% 25-year power production warranty. So all that means is that by year 25, they're guaranteeing your panels will be producing at least 90% of the capacity that they were on day one. A parts warranty is also going to be included. That'll cover the panels, the inverters, any other equipment involved in your installation. And those tend to range, but we usually see about 10 to 25 years, depending on the parts. And then a labor warranty is also important. That will cover any roof penetrations or work done by the actual installation crew. And again, those range, but we typically see 10 to 20 years for most of those warranties. I think Icon is actually a little higher. With homeowners insurance, it's always a good idea to give your insurance company a call and let them know that you added solar. Vast majority of people do not see any sort of increase, mostly because insurance companies actually consider solar panels as somewhat of an asset, since they provide a level of physical protection on your roof against hail or rain or other environmental factors. If you do see an increase, it would definitely be worth asking why and maybe shopping around for another company. And then what about maintenance? One of the great things about solar panels is that they're very low maintenance. I wouldn't say they're no maintenance, but they're pretty low maintenance. Normal precipitation will really help to keep them clean. If there's a really large dust storm, which we sometimes get, it can be a good idea to call a cleaning company just to make sure that isn't affecting their production too much. It's definitely a good idea every couple of years, every few years, to have a visual inspection done of your system to make sure that everything is in tip-top shape and performing as it should. Most inverters today come with an app that you can use on your phone or your tablet, where you can track the production in real time. And that's really helpful because if a panel is underproducing or something's wrong, you'll notice that something is definitely off. And that way you can get it fixed before you're paying any more in electricity costs that you don't need to. We often get asked, how long do solar systems last? Like I mentioned, they're typically warranted for 25 years, but solar systems will last longer than that, especially if you're taking care of them. I've seen solar panels on roofs that are well over 30 years old. They are just going to decrease a little bit in efficiency over time, but they will last beyond 25 years. The warranties just will be 25 years. And then if you live in a homeowners association, good news is that we have a law in the books in the state that essentially says HOAs cannot outright block you from adding solar to your home. They're allowed to put in some design review board restrictions, for example, where they can kind of get a review of it first. But the court has ruled at the end of the day, they cannot outright stop you from adding solar. So if you run into any issues with your HOA, please reach out. We have a lot of experience dealing with them, which is sometimes fun. And then if you live in a historic district, definitely just check your historic district guidelines. They're going to vary quite a bit from city to city and even district to district. Many of them have some restrictions, like for example, you can install solar panels, but only if they're in the rear of the home, so they're not visible from the main street. So definitely just check in with whatever your district guidelines to make sure you're not jeopardizing any sort of tax advantage with that. All right, next brief section is a little bit about the economics of financing solar. First thing we always like to make sure people understand is that there is a 30% solar tax credit thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act. This would have expired last year, but it's been extended until 2032. It's important to note this is a tax credit, and so you need to pay income taxes, federal income taxes, in order to claim this. It's not a rebate. You don't get it at the point of sale. So if you install solar this year, when you file your taxes in the spring of 2025, if you're eligible, you'll get the 30% tax credit then. The state also offers a 25% state tax credit, but it's capped at $1,000. So most people are just able to get that $1,000 tax credit from the state. And same thing, you have to have taxable income in order to get this. We also have a law that says if adding solar increases your property tax value, it can't increase your property tax liability by that amount, which is pretty cool. And then solar panels are sales tax exempt. And then to briefly touch on financing, of course, if you're able to pay cash up front, that's going to be the highest upfront cost, but we'll definitely maximize your savings over the lifespan of that system. But otherwise, there are a few different ways to finance a solar system. One definitely option is going through an installer's in-house financing company or preferred financing company. I know Icon Power works with some that are really great. We just encourage you that the devil is always in the details. So double check that fine print, read the rates, and understand what you're signing before. But certainly going through an installer's preferred financing company can work really well, but you don't have to. Many people will shop around at their local bank or credit union. Unfortunately, in Arizona, we don't have a ton of banks and credit unions that offer solar loans. Tucson Old Pueblo Credit Union, I know, is one that does in Tucson. And then another option is, home equity line of credit or refinancing your home. I would not recommend doing this right now, just the way interest rates are. But that used to be a very common option that people would use to pay for their solar panels. And then third-party leases, that refers to when a third party, usually the installer or your financer, they will actually own the solar system on your roof, but you are paying a fixed monthly cost to lease it. So you're still enjoying the benefits of that solar system, but the lease will be in a fixed term, so usually about 10 or to 15 years, after which they will come and remove the panels, or you may have an option to purchase it. Leases can be a good option, but generally we encourage people that if you're able to finance a system, ownership of a solar panels is going to increase your savings over the long run than if you leased it typically. All right, just a couple more slides here, and then we'll hand it over to Jordan. Couple reasons to join a solar co-op, if you haven't yet. I know a few people haven't. So Solar United Neighbors, we've run more than 500 of these now across the country, and that's pretty cool because it's been a really well-oiled machine that we consistently see positive results from. Some of the benefits of going solar through a co-op, I think first and foremost, one of the main reasons people join is because we aggregate many consumers together. Usually our goal is about 100 or so. And then we bid out the group to installers who are able to offer bulk discounts on pricing and equipment in order to win the group's contract. So that helps you save money and helps the installers because they are getting a large group of customers. Of course, and then Solar United Neighbors is here also as an unbiased third-party nonprofit. We're here to guide you throughout the whole process, provide free education, technical advice, and support. And that includes before, during, and after installation. So even people who installed solar 5 years ago through us, if they ever run into an issue or have a question, we're still here for them. And then, of course, we're going to connect you to a larger growing movement of solar. We definitely have some volunteer opportunities for people who are really interested in affecting some change at the policy level. But if you're not interested in it, that is completely okay too. And then the solar co-op process is typically about 6 to 8 months, depending on the length of installation. Like I said, we launched this co-op in early March, and right out of the gate, we had a couple free information sessions similar to what we're doing tonight. The co-op is free to join. You can sign up online. It's not a commitment to go solar, so you're not committing to signing a contract or anything like that. If you have already signed up for the co-op, we definitely encourage people to help us spread the word and grow the group to an even larger size. Step 4 is all about the installer selection. So once the co-op has reached usually about 30 or 40 members, we'll issue that RFP, receive solar bids, and then we will review those bids, check their references, their reviews, make sure that they're up to a high quality of standard, and then we'll present those bids to you, the co-op members, who volunteer for the selection committee, and they will make one selection on behalf of the group. Sign up deadline, like I said, is June 7th for this co-op, so we got a little bit left if anybody's still looking to join. Once an installer is selected, which has been selected, of course, if you're here tonight, they are going to start presenting proposals to each co-op member. So they'll meet with you. They'll probably ask for some utility bills. I'll let Jordan go into that a little bit more, but they're going to design a custom quote for your roof that works for you, but with the negotiated co-op pricing. At this point, we really hope you feel good and confident enough to go ahead and sign a contract with the selected installer and move forward to the installation phase. After you sign a contract, Icon Power is going to begin designing the system. They'll also need to get permits and approval from your city or county, depending on where you live. That definitely takes some time, depending on the circumstances, but the day of installation itself is usually pretty quick, usually a day or less. After your system's installed, the utility, TEP for most people, will need to issue what's called PTO, permission to operate, essentially saying they looked over the system, gave it the thumbs up, and it's ready to interconnect to the larger grid. So once you've issued PTO, your solar system will be turned on and you'll start generating electricity. And then at some point, definitely would love to come back down to Tucson and meet with some people once the majority of systems are completed and kind of celebrate the success of the co-op. Here's the link right here. Again, if anybody needs it, solarunitedneighbors.org/Tucson. I will drop that in the chat as well. And with that, Jordan, love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company.
Yeah, appreciate it, Adrian. My name is Jordan, one of the owners of Icon. I head up the sales team. All the sales managers at each one of our markets report up to me. I'm based in Phoenix, but we have a local team there in Tucson. Our local Tucson sales managers are actually on the call as well. That's Zach, Sweetie, and Ivan. And so a little bit about Icon. We've been installing in Arizona for about 7 years now. We've worked with Solar United Neighbors on quite a few co-ops now. It's been over 10. I think this might be 12, maybe 13 or so, where we've been selected as the installer. So we're always humbled. There's been a few where we weren't selected, and it's always a little disappointing. So it's always great to get that email from Adrian and Solar United team that we were selected for the installer. I think it's our third in Tucson. We've done one in Eastern Arizona in Portal, right on the border of New Mexico and Arizona. We've done a handful in the Phoenix area as well as up in Flagstaff and Prescott area. A big reason, in my opinion, why we've been picked a lot, and just why customers come to Icon in general. Solar is great. You know, a lot of people have loved the idea of solar in Arizona. A big part of the solar industry right now is their sales companies, sales and marketing companies, where they're the ones making phone calls, handing out flyers, or knocking on doors, and they're the ones that get the sale, and then that customer gets passed off to an installer, and then the installer does the work. And so sometimes, and then there's usually a finance company if they don't pay it off up front. And sometimes the maintenance might even be subcontracted out to another company. And so solar is great until it stops working. And so some people get pretty frustrated if, do they call their sales company that signed them up? Do they call the installation company or the finance company? Who's going to own it and make sure that it's fixed and taken care of? And unfortunately, a lot of times the answer is not us. Don't call it. We just sold it or we just installed it. And people get frustrated if they can't find an answer or a company that's going to take care of them. So at Icon, our mission is to improve lives. We want our customers to have a better situation after having our product installed on their home. And we're vertically integrated. So we're the sales company, we're the installation company, we're the service and maintenance company. So if something does go wrong, you call us. That's it. And we want to make sure that we get service taken care of sooner than later. We want our customers out to be advocates for us. In Arizona, there's still less than 10% of homes that have solar. With the amount of sun we get, it will continue to grow and be higher. And a lot of people are going to check with their neighbors, their friends, their family on who did you go solar with and should we use them, right? And so we want our customers to be spreading the word and telling their friends and again, being advocates for us. Just to echo Adrian's comments about the benefits of going solar through the co-op, a big part of our cost is marketing, whether it's paying people to make cold calls or knock on doors or advertisements, right? That's a cost that we incur, that we pay for. With the co-op, Solar United pitches, hey, I have a bunch of my friends. We all want to go solar. What kind of deal can you give us? And so, through the selection committee, they pick, and almost every selection committee member in the past have gone solar with us. And so they're the ones who want a good deal, reputable company. And so there's a handful of benefits. One is it's a very competitive price. And so the marketing costs that we normally would have, we can remove a big chunk of that. And that's how you guys are able to get a more competitive price than if you just called a solar company or if they knocked on your door or cold called you, right? Kind of like the Costco effect, you get a bulk discount. So competitive pricing is one. But for a lot of the additional items that might come with solar, whether it's electrical work, batteries, other smaller things that might have to be done, we gave discounts on those as well. And then the warranties are higher or longer than what we would normally do. A standard warranty for labor and roof penetration in the solar industry is 10 years, which is our standard warranty as well, with the option to extend it at a cost, where for people in the co-op, we extended it to 10 years, or sorry, another 10 years. So 20 total for roof penetrations, as well as labor warranty at no additional cost. So that just comes by being a member of the co-op. We gave a pretty hefty discount on batteries. Adrian went over the pricing with TEP. We're selling a lot more batteries, both in the Phoenix Valley with SRP and APS, those two major utilities, as well as TEP, mainly because there's peak hours with the utilities where the solar might not be producing as much, right? We'll use the winter, for example, November to February. The peak hours are from 6 to 9 in the morning with TEP and 6 to 9 at night. Again, the solar is not producing very much power during that time. And so if someone has a battery, what's awesome about the battery is they can use the battery to power the home during that window. So if you use the battery between 6 to 9 in the morning, the solar is going to recharge it again to 100%. And then at nighttime, when it's 6 o'clock, the solar is in December, January, the solar is probably producing nothing at that point, right? Because the sun goes down so early. And so between 6 to 9, the battery will power your home again. And so Adrian showed two different price plans there. The one with the demand charge, that demand charge is an extra variable, but it also has much cheaper price per kilowatt hour. Well, if you have a battery, the Powerwall 3 can output 11.5 kilowatts. And so during those winter months, there's a good chance it eliminates the potential to have a demand charge at all. And even potentially in the summer months too, because the summer, the peak hours are from 3 to 7. Well, between 3 to 7 in the summer, the panels will produce a decent amount. But again, if it doesn't produce enough to power your home during that window, the battery would kick on and supplement any power for you up to that 7 o'clock window. So we help our customers program that, but the apps are super easy as well to program the battery to discharge at the right time. And then, of course, the other benefit of the battery is it acts as a backup generator. So if you lose power to the grid, if you don't have a battery, the solar is connected to the grid. And so if you lose power, the grid loses power, your solar is going to lose power as well. It's not going to work. If you have a battery, then essentially the solar and battery disconnect from the grid during that time, and the solar and the battery will power your home while the grid is down. Now, it's not going to at nighttime. It's not going to power up forever. How long will the battery last? It just depends on what you're using. If you're running the AC at 70 degrees, it's not going to last as long. Then if you maybe run it at maybe not what you'd normally run it at, maybe 80 degrees, but some not bearable, but not living in a sauna, but not also living in an icebox at the same time. If it's in the middle of the day, whether maybe someone ran into a transformer and your neighborhood lost power or something like that. If the sun is up, well, the panels are still going to produce power, and the battery and feed into the battery and still power the home for quite a while. So we encourage batteries now where the industry has changed. Where in the past most solar companies tried to talk people out of getting batteries, we encourage them. You saw the export rate is a little over 6 cents, and the off-peak rate on the plan without a demand charge is about 12 cents, if not more. So we encourage batteries with the Powerwall 3. Tesla has a product called the backup safety switch. And so in our bid for the co-op, normally we would charge about $14,500 per battery. For TEP, the utility has approved this device called the backup safety switch. And so when that's applicable, for the Powerwall 3, we gave a discount to where it's only $11,000. If you don't have TEP, or you have a main panel that's bigger than 225 amps, the backup safety switch wouldn't apply in that situation. And so the battery cost would be higher at $13,900. So if you live in TEP, you have a 200 amp main breaker or smaller, we highly recommend the battery. Helps lower your cost to TEP, and it's beneficial to switch to that plan that does have a demand charge. Like Adrian said, we want to customize the systems for each person's home, for the situation, for their future needs, which could be maybe your electricity consumption might increase in the future, whether it's a swimming pool or jacuzzi or electric car, or if it's decreasing because you're improving your appliances or doing energy efficiency upgrades, or people moving out, right? We want to customize it based off of, hey, let's look at your usage history as a benchmark. And if nothing's going to change, great, we'll use that and size the system accordingly. But we want to make sure that we size it to what you want, to your benefit. Again, make sure you're happy so that we are getting referrals and you're spreading the word to others to go solar with us in the future, rather than trying to put out fires. So when someone does sign up, the first step would be do a site survey to inspect the roof, inspect the electrical box. And then from there, we do a design that we would then present to you guys and say, hey, this is the design we talked about. If there's any changes to the course, that will change the price. Could be more, could be less, depending on where you go from that point. When someone approves the design, we submit it simultaneously both to the city as well as the utility. And depends on the city. TP can take anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes less, sometimes more. Just depends on how busy they get. Those that sign up earlier on, you're going to have a little bit quicker time turnaround because as summer comes along and people get higher electric bills, solar becomes more to the front of your mind, right? Like solar is a little bit seasonal because between November to February, when the bills are lower, it's not something that's on the front of your mind and it's not urgent, right? As people start getting their 2 to 3 and even sometimes $400 or $500 electric bills, that's when we start getting busy because people start reaching out to us more rather than us having to reach out to them. So earlier on in the spring, obviously summer is just here around the corner. The sooner you sign up, they're going to have a little bit quicker of a turnaround because the cities and the utilities aren't as busy. But once we have approval from both the city as well as the utility, then we can schedule the installation. Like Adrian said, it'll take a day. We have solar crews, we have battery crews, so the best we can. We try and schedule those on the same day. Sometimes we can't. So we might schedule the battery crew first or the solar crews first. In general, we try and schedule them the same day when possible when those line up. But typically the battery and the solar takes about a day, sometimes a day and a half or two if it's a bigger project. From there, we would schedule a city inspection. After city inspection, TP would or the utility would do their final pass off, and then we can turn the system on, and it's called permission to operate. Excited to work with you all. Again, we're always humble when we're picked to be the installer for the co-op. We're not perfect. We will make mistakes. We like to think we commit less mistakes than most. But because we own the process from when someone signs up to installation to service, if we do make a mistake, we'll own it. We'll make it right. We've again, it's a construction project, so something could go wrong. So if something does, whether a permit gets rejected or an inspection fails, we do our best not to let that happen. Every once in a while it does. Sometimes every city inspector has their own code or has their own opinion. And so sometimes we're at their mercy. But in general, the cities that we work with, we've done hundreds, if not thousands of projects in those cities, thousands with TEP. And so we have the process down pretty well. I'll kind of end there and open it up to questions for you guys. If you have questions about that I didn't answer in general, or if you have questions about your specific home. I got Zach and Ivan on here as well. They're very experts with TP and Trico in that Tucson area. Might be able to answer your questions as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Jordan.
And if you're scared to ask a question, there's a good chance somebody else probably has that same question. So don't be afraid to speak up because someone else is going to be grateful that you did because maybe they were scared too.
Go ahead, Barbara.
I have a question. Excuse me. I had received some bids from other companies before I joined the co-op, and I've got a range of kilowatt systems that everyone's recommended using the same data, the roof size and my electric bill over the last couple of years. So how do you determine that exact size of the system, and how much, what percentage did you go over what the normal usage would be?
That's a great question. I'm going to defer that to Zach.
So it is case by case with each utility. I'm assuming you're Tucson Electric Power.
Uh-huh.
So with Tucson Electric Power, the one problem we do see in Tucson alone is, since you probably saw on the rate sheets that the buyback rate and the retail rate are not congruent. So you can go with an oversized system, which a lot of companies prefer to do, going with like a 130, 140% offset. And that worked really well in years past. Now, every year, the buyback rate does drop. So obviously, companies need to adjust their sizing accordingly. So you'll see companies come in and offer 100% offset. You'll see companies come in and offer a 130, and they'll all give a little bit varying opinions of what that post-solar bill with the utility will look like. Every situation is different. So I guess them having some sort of software to model what your electric bill would look like afterwards. But it's very common when we do meet with multiple companies that they have a wide range of system sizes. from 60, 70% offsets to 140, 150 even.
Okay, thank you. Is there a maximum offset that TEP will allow?
In some cases, it's mainly based off your home's transformer size. So when we submit whatever the transformer capacity that your home sits on, if there's a lot of solar already installed, they could reject or cap it. It's a pretty uncommon situation. But they do technically have a max. They also have situations where if you reach, in most cases, it ends up being about more than 65 solar panels, your project would have to go through additional screening because it's a large system. They need to look at the home's exact transformer. So in most normal cases, the true answer and the real world answer is no, but technically there could be.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
And to add on to that, you know, some companies, like Zach mentioned in the past, it made sense to try and oversize the system to sell a bunch of power back to TEP to eliminate some of the charges, or to, you know, if they say, hey, you owe us 50, but we owe you 100, then they'd have a negative $50 bill, right? With the buyback rate less and the off-peak rates higher, it's harder to do that. And so that's why we've more so geared towards 100 to maybe 110% offset plus a battery, rather than oversizing it for more solar, add a battery that can power the home during the peak hours, rather, because it doesn't matter how many panels are on the roof. Once the sun's not shining, you're buying from the utility, right? And so the battery is very beneficial when the sun's not shining, but it's still expensive time from TEP, whether it's the summer, you know, if it's 4 o'clock and your battery's 100% and there's black clouds out, your panels might not produce much. But the battery will kick on because the battery will know this is expensive time. We don't want to buy power from the grid and turn it. And so the battery can output up to 11.5 kilowatts. For comparison, an AC unit might use between 4 to 5 kilowatts in real time. And so we kind of like compare that to like a fire hose, right? Like if you have, or a garden hose, if you only have your lights on and the fridge is on, your real time need is small. And it might be comparable to like a garden hose. If you turn on 2 air conditioners and an electric dryer and a car charger, your real-time power is increasing, you know, like a fire hydrant. You're getting a lot of power in real time. And so even if the solar was producing nothing, you could have 2 air conditioners running simultaneously and the battery would still be able to output enough to where you wouldn't buy any power from the utility during that window, if that makes sense. So that's why it can help eliminate, in most cases, eliminate the demand charge. In the summertime, the solar will produce up to about 7 o'clock, plus the battery capacity would help eliminate any demand charge. And then again, in the wintertime as well. Looks like Deb has a question.
I do, and this is a fairly specific question. I'm in on this call for my daughter who couldn't make it tonight. She's working, but she has at least solar panels with solar power out of Texas. I think it's sun power. She has to have some roof repairs done underneath the solar panels. And they've given her a ridiculous quote to take them down and put them up. Is this something that you would do would you remove panels, let her have the roofing done and replace them for a leased company?
We'd have, so there's a good chance that SunPower was not the installation company. SunPower is typically the leasing company. Yes. And so another installation company is a dealer of SunPower. So we partner with a company called Sonova. You could call us a Sonova dealer, where someone could do a lease through Sonova, but Icon Power is the installation company. In general, it's best to go through the company that did the initial install, because that's who the roof penetration warranty is with. That's who the labor warranty is with. So short answer is yes, we could. So we'd have to get an idea of how many panels she has. Is it a flat roof, a pitched roof? And then we could give a quote based off of that.
Okay. She has 65 panels. She sent me a copy of the lease, and it is a pitched roof.
Okay.
So, I mean, can I have her call
My
you? I don't
guess,
want to, yeah, I don't
yeah,
want you to have to
yeah, that's
do a
fine.
guess on this. Yeah, if she could call you, because I think obviously we'd want to use somebody, she doesn't know anything about the company that gave her the quote to take them down, but it seems very high. And so yeah, it would be just good to get a feel from you
Is
what a quote would be.
did she buy the home with the panels already on it, or is she the one that signed
No,
the initial agreement?
she's the one who signed the lease. Yeah, I don't think
Okay,
she's looking into the contract to see if she can get out of it, but we're not sure at this point.
gotcha.
So you would do
So,
it
and I,
provided she's willing to take the risk of, I mean, I don't know what they'd say about warranty issues and that kind of thing, but
yeah, we just have to look at the agreements and see if
yeah,
that's something that would void any like warranty on the panels, because that we don't want to do that. And then, but yeah, we
right.
can take a look at that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep, you bet.
Actually, that was one of my questions as well. And thank you both so much. It's been really great to hear all this information as a relatively new member of the co-op. But I was curious about on the long term, it's amazing how long the solar panels last. But while our roof is relatively new, I wasn't sure what the process is for like regular maintenance um, or replacing the roof if we had to before one day we'd want the solar panels to come up. So I was kind of curious about, if we have, we're not planning on replacing the roof for another like 15 years at least. But that will obviously happen before the 25 mark. And so how often do people find themselves needing to take down the solar panels, put them back up? And then um, can you ballpark like the kind of numbers that we're looking at for that process?
Yeah. So we actually included that cost in our bid for people that do get solar through us in the co-op. So this wouldn't necessarily apply to your daughter, Deb, but we did bid $100 per panel that we to remove the solar and reinstall it, and that'd be for an Icon customer.
Mhm.
That's total. So if you looked at it, taking it off and put it back on, it'd be $50 essentially to take it off and $50 to put it back on, right? Um, for non-Icon installed systems, depending on the complication and how long it takes, we would typically, and the market is about 200 to 300 per panel. So Deb, I wouldn't be surprised if your daughter had a quote for over $20,000 to remove those based off of the market, mainly just because it's almost like an opportunity cost of, we have a crew that's essentially, they're not installing on someone's home, not because they're uninstalling and reinstalling on a current one, right? So we'd want that not to happen, as in the future. Phoebe, right? That's who asked that question.
Yes,
So
sir.
we do a roof inspection first. In general, the solar might help the roof last longer because it's
Mhm.
not getting that direct sunlight anymore. And if there is roof damage, we don't want to make it worse. But if someone's roof is in good shape, they'll probably have to do it at least once within a 25-year period,
Mhm.
would be
Okay,
my
well
guess.
that's totally fine. I think I wasn't sure what, especially with Deb's question, I was like, I really do want to know. So $800 or $1,000 once in the lifetime of the panels would be totally fine. So, all right, thank you.
It just depends on how many panels, right? So if we did $100 a panel, someone has 20 panels, and that's going to be $2,000 down the road. Now, what we've found in the past is people have asked their roofer to cover that. Hey, we want to help us cover this cost of removing and reinstalling the solar. Does that make sense? One thing I forgot to bring up. So, Adrian, we mentioned a few of the warranties, right? The panels is 25 years. The roof and the labor is 10 years. If you do get a battery, it's the manufacturer warranty is 10 years. Well, we partnered with a company called Solar Insure, where you can extend the warranty on the battery to 20 years for a little over $2,000 per battery. By doing so, you'd also extend the warranty on the panels, the inverter, the roof, and labor warranties to 30 years. So there's I think we did 10 cents a watt for the solar insure on the solar and all the extended warranties, and then $2,000 per panel, right? So sometimes people ask, like, what if Icon goes out of business, right? We're growing, we're not and we're not just in Arizona, we're in multiple states. But if 10 years, 15 years down the road, we happen to not be in business, but you still have 30 years on everything and then 20 years on the battery, you just have to find a new contractor, but you still have those warranties through solar insurance. Barbara.
I have a question about the panels. I noticed that Meyer Burger panels are now being made in Goodyear, Arizona, and I was wondering if you use those panels.
Which panels?
Meyer Burger. They're originally from Germany, and now they have a plant in Goodyear. And I was interested in trying to use as many US-made products as possible versus those made in Singapore, Philippines, Malaysia, etc. So are you familiar with those?
I'm familiar with them. We have not used those panels yet. The Q-cell panels that we do mainly use, those ones are made and put together in Georgia.
Oh, okay.
So not Arizona, but still in the US.
Okay, good to know. Thanks. Oh, one more question about the inverters. Have you found any difference in problems between the microinverters and the string inverters?
Have we found any problems with either of them?
Right, like long-term problems. I know if you have a microinverter, then you can isolate a problem to a specific panel versus string, you have to troubleshoot. So do you have
with the string inverters, they use with the Powerwall 3, the inverter is built into the battery, which is a string inverter. But we would put optimizers on the panels, so you can also isolate if there is a problem. So it just depends on preference. So there's, Tesla makes inverters and Enphase makes inverters as well. Enphase is a little more expensive than the Tesla inverter. If you're getting the Tesla battery, then that just automatically comes with the inverter then.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Yep, you bet.
Okay, I have another specific question. I have a freestanding carport on my property, just about 4 feet away from the house. And I was wondering if it's possible to put solar panels on that existing carport. It's not super big, as well as on the roof if they are like near each other, but there's like a 4 foot gap.
Yeah, as long as the carport is structurally sound, last thing we want is causing damage to the property, right? So we would do
Yes.
our own inspection and get an engineer calculations and stamped and whatnot. There would be a little, not much if it's 4 feet. It'd be like $100 worth of trenching, so that we'd have to bury the conduit in the ground and take it over to where your main electrical box is on the main house. But we don't have to trench all the way to the main. We could trench from the carport to the closest part of your home and then run the conduit on the side of the home over to the main electrical box rather than trenching all the way there.
Awesome. And it sounds like you'll be
But
sending
yeah,
an
as long as
engineer.
so we'd have a site surveyor is what we call them. They come out and survey the property, the roof, the electrical, send all those pictures to our design team. And then on structures like that, we'd have to get an engineer to stamp the plans to make sure that, hey, we got a professional person to sign off on it, essentially.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Linda, Lorraine, Carl, speak now or forever hold your peace. Just kidding. If you have any questions, that's fine.
I just have some input on roofing because I need to replace my roof while getting the solar. I have to coordinate the two since my roof is 26 years old. And I'm going to get a foam roof, which has a 10-year guarantee. And the roofer told me that recoating at the end of that 10 years to extend it another 10 years is no problem under the, if I have panels on the rails, that they can do that easily. I don't have to remove anything.
Correct. Yeah. So it's smart to redo the roof now rather if it's that old. And we also provide roofing services as well. And then, but yeah, he's correct that you can, like the Amerelastic coating, you can roll it underneath the panels. You don't have to remove panels to do that.
Right, right. Okay.
I'm going to ask, or just add one more thing. For my daughter's situation, when they installed it, they didn't install a good barrier for birds. And the reason her underlayment needs redoing is because birds nested under there and the droppings really deteriorated the underlayment. I mean, obviously she wants them to be responsible for it, but it's very hard to get to speak to somebody personally at this leasing company to even get them to acknowledge it. So that's a complication. I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
If it's an issue now, when the panels are uninstalled and reinstalled, it'd be a good idea to put pigeon guard or pest abatement is what we call it.
She did that after, but afterwards she had somebody else come out and do it, but it was, the damage was already done apparently.
The problem was already there. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would try and have her find her installation agreement. So she has an installation agreement with installer as well as a leasing agreement with SunPower.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for all the information. It's really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, and Deb, just throwing this out there, like, yeah, Icon is a great resource as well. Sun would also be very happy to help your daughter out with this if you guys need any support.
Okay, thank you.
Deb, are you a paid actress to show us the amount of care that we can take if we get solar?
No, not getting paid to be here.
Okay, I'm just saying this is a very this looks like a very helpful group. So awesome to see. Yes, thank you all so much for tonight.
And that's kind of what I brought up before. Like, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that have solar that might not be very happy because they can't get a hold of somebody to actually do the work. And that's why we've been selected for a lot of these co-ops, because again, if something goes wrong, you know, we have finance companies that we work with so that people can go solar without any money up front, right? But if something goes wrong with the system, they're not calling the finance company or leasing company, they're calling Icon. All right, there's no more questions. Adrian, I'll turn it back over to you, man.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead, Lorraine.
Oh, hi. It's a roofing question. My roof has not been replaced. I live in an old house, and the roofer who's done, I live in it's a flat roof. He said, yeah, your roof could handle solar, but I'm not convinced that that's really true, since there's been damage to the roof in years past. So my question to you is, roof leaks and repairs over the years. So I'm not sure what questions I need to ask roofers. Or, what do I need to know about my roof before I can say, yeah, I'm ready for solar? Does that make sense?
I would have us look at it, to be honest, because if the roof is in bad shape, we don't want to install solar on it. So we would be honest with you of yes, it can, or yet no, it can't. Because if it is in bad shape and we installed solar on it, we're now liable for that, any additional damage that was caused by the solar, which we prefer not to have, right? And like I was telling Barbara, we also offer roofing services too, so we could take a look at it as well. So we typically will tell someone, hey, your roof will work, maybe it has 5 years left, which means, hey, you can install the solar now, but you probably need to replace your roof in about 5 years, which means remove the solar, reinstall it. Or if you really, if you're going to incur that cost in the future, a lot of, if someone's financing it, they can roll the roof cost into the financing, which means they don't have any upfront costs for the roof or the solar, and then have a payment for those products, right? That's an option. Or, they can pay cash for both the roof and for the solar, or a mix of financing and cash on both products.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess maybe more of a background question that I have is, I need to look at the history of when all these leaks were, when they were repaired, because I'm just wondering, like, wow, you can still have a roof that's old, that's been repaired, but never been replaced, like in over 15 years, and still call it good. That's something you can take a look at and determine. I don't know if that's also a question that makes sense. Can you just like say, it doesn't, if you're just looking at the roof and you have a sense of the history, can it still be good even though there's been a long history of never been replaced, had a lot of repairs, and it can still be good?
I'm not an expert roofer, so it's hard to say, but we would have somebody do an inspection on it, like physically walk on the roof and inspect it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to be redundant about that question. Okay.
No, it's a great question. Like, I mean, last thing you want is to put something on your roof that's going to cause issues or a leak in your house, right? So we've had very few and far between, but we've had them, and no fun for the owner, no fun for us, but we make it right.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right. Any other questions? All right, here none. I'm gonna just put my email here in the chat in case you think of something later and want to reach out. I don't know if Jordan or Zach or Ivan or all of you want to put your emails too, in case you have another question. But other than that, thank you all so much for joining us, and we're here if you need us. And yeah, have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thank you.
Good night.
I'll put my email in the chat too. All right. Bye, everybody.
Night.
Bye.